Welcome to Wadsworth History on Film, a program presented by the Wadsworth Area Historical Society and designed to record the oral history of Wadsworth. Our program today is one that we have each year, we try to have each year, and that is the class that is celebrating its 50th anniversary from Wadsworth High School, graduating from Wadsworth High School. I'm your host, Cesar Carino, and with us today we have 4 of those members. Now please know that there were more than just 4, but we can't fit more than 4 around the table here. Ruth Ann, Cochran, Dirks, right? I'm going to have some problem with some of the married names.
Yes.
And your married name is what, Joe?
Joe Arpad.
Joe Arpad and Dick Wolford and Jim Rivers. Now those are the 4 who we're representing today. We have 3 or 4 others in the studio here, but they elected not to come on camera. And we elected not to have them come on camera because there's not enough room. So this is what we're going to be talking about today, that you people are going to be able to tell us a great deal about the class of 1955. And somewhat different from most of the programs, I'm just going to sit back and let you reminisce. But before we start reminiscing, we want to warm you up a little bit by asking who you are, what you've been doing, where you lived when you were in Wadsworth, and so forth. Ruth Ann, we'll start with you. Where did you live in Wadsworth when you were living here?
Well, I lived on South Main Street. It's 5/10 of a mile south of town. I used to walk
about 40 years ago, after you graduated, we stopped people from saying South Main Street because there is no North Main Street.
Oh, is that right?
That's right. That's a High Street and Main Street. So you lived at 5, what was the house number down there, Ruth Ann?
Oh, boy. Does anybody know?
Who dated her? I mean,
I didn't date anyone.
And you lived where? Give us a geographical location of where it was. From State Street.
5/10 of the way.
5/10 of a mile.
The city limit, and then it was 5/10 of a mile.
Oh, beyond the city limits.
Beyond the city
okay,
limits.
Fine. So you lived
She was
way
one
out
of the
there.
farm girls.
Yeah, it was in a rural area.
And who were some of your neighbors down there?
My neighbor was Paul Mowers.
Paul Mauer, right? He just died incidentally.
He just died, right. Longs.
He had 2
were
children,
across the street.
Evelyn and
Irene.
Irene and Evelyn.
Yeah, a little nervous.
No problem. This is what we're going to do.
And then we had the Longs across the
Which
street.
Longs?
I think they were Long.
But
and the Griffiths.
Griffiths, okay.
Were across the street.
Right.
And Emmerichs, I think, were on the
On
left
the other
side.
Was he a teacher?
No.
No, different
No.
kind of an Emmerich. Okay.
Right.
Joe, how about you?
I grew up on Broad Street, right over there.
East Broad or West Broad?
It's East Broad, I guess.
East Broad. And here again we have, Wadsworth is probably the only city in the world that has streets changing names in the square. But you lived on Broad Street. And 91?
791. My neighbor next door was Gary Polk, the Polk family.
Right.
On the other side was the West family.
West family, right.
And then across the street was Fraser, Mr. Fraser, I'm sorry.
Phrase.
Mr. was the first name.
Pardon?
Mr. is his first name.
Mr. was his first name.
Right. I graduated from Wadsworth High School, went on to college, and did some professor work, and then last October we decided we'd come back to Wadsworth and retire here.
And you lived in California most of the time, is that right?
Yes.
And so we're going to come back and get a little bit more of that information, but we're just right now going to try to figure out who's here talking to us. Dick, how about you?
I think it was 369 High Street.
369 High Street.
It was 3 houses north of North Street.
3 houses north of North Street, okay? And who's your family?
Helen and Paul Wolford.
Okay.
And he worked for the Ohio Injector Company.
Right.
And I can't remember the neighbors. I think one of them was Randolph. Had a couple kids that were very good wrestlers on
Great
down.
big fellows.
Yes.
That was Tex Randolph.
And Jim Jennison lived right close, and Jack Budarf. And
Jack Budarf, right.
We all went to Lincoln Elementary or
Went to Lincoln School.
and walked down Lincoln, drive every day.
And where do you live now?
Lebanon, Ohio.
And what do you do?
I'm retired. I do work for the bank, a local bank, as a courier, a couple of days a week.
And what did you do before that?
I worked for I had a property management company in Cincinnati for 25 years, my own. And then we had, after I got tired of fooling with the people, I just
The problem is that all you fool
I
with is
started to
people.
work for the Warren County Engineer's Office. Worked there for 15 years.
Right, right. Jim, how about you?
Well, I lived on State Street.
On State Street.
That's 580 State Street.
580 State Street. And your father was Jim also.
Right.
And I know your brothers and sisters and
13 of us.
13 of you.
Yes.
I can't do it in alphabetical order, but I can do it.
You probably don't remember the last three. So.
Well, the last three I knew only by name, but I knew the rest of them very, very well. And what did you do all of your life, Jim?
Well, I taught school for
And what
31
else?
years and was a principal for
Principal,
10 of those
right.
years.
In
I just,
Barberton?
all in Barberton. I just finished a 6-month interim as principal
Where?
at Oakdale School,
Oakdale School.
and they closed the school.
Closed the school.
I have a good history in Barberton.
I was a principal also one time, and they closed that school a few years after I left. Not because of my having left, but after I left. And I always said that the school died before the principal did. Ruth Ann, now that you're no longer nervous, tell us what you do and what you did and where you live and all those other kinds of things.
Well, I live in, it's called Newton, Kansas, not Newton, Massachusetts, but Newton, Kansas.
Okay.
And I'm retired, but I'm still teaching.
And where are you teaching?
Emporia State University.
And what do you
It's,
teach?
I teach for the School of Business. Right now I'm teaching business communications.
Business communications.
At
Well,
this
we have
point.
2 college professors there on the tab. The class of 1955 did quite well. One principal and, and a man who doesn't like people. But we're all and we're all set. No, I'm just kidding, obviously. Now, it's your turn to reminisce. You got all of the butterflies out of your stomach, and we're going to reminisce, so let's take one at a time. Jim, your first experience in school, when you first started, where was it and what was it like?
My first experience was at centralized school.
Right. And what was it like?
It was a lot of fun.
A lot of fun.
I remember Miss Bertha Kuhn was the
Bertha
teacher.
Kuhn, now dead.
Oh my.
And I remember we would go out at noon and come back in, and she would crank up the Victrola and put a record on, and we'd put our heads down, and we wouldn't go to sleep, but we'd just rest.
Just rested.
Yeah, I remember that very well.
And I think that it would be appropriate to say that your brother Linton was the first Afro-American ever to go to Centralized. I was there at the time, and they spent 2 weeks preparing us for this. And I think it was one of the best things that ever happened. They surely didn't prepare for any other ethnic group, I'll tell you that. I know that for a fact
There
because
weren't any.
some of us could not
Well,
speak
the
English.
Italians,
Some of us could not speak English whatsoever, and they were not prepared for that. But that was a good. And then you went to high school, and right after high school, what did you feel that you wanted to do?
Nothing.
Nothing. Good.
My father kept encouraging me to go to college, and I kept saying no.
And where did you go to college then?
I finally ended up at Bluffton College.
Bluffton College. That's wonderful. Dick, how about you? Your first experiences in school, and now we're going to start getting some memories here. Your first
Yeah.
experiences in school. I'll help you with the first ones. Now you're going to have to help yourselves with the latter ones.
I really remember Lincoln Elementary School, and I think it was about the 5th grade. I fell out of a tree when I was jumping at the recess and broke my arm. And
Be a lawsuit today, but go ahead.
yeah, I know. And, but I was very close, and I do remember walking to school and being one of those patrol boys that had to roll out the sign every time and wait for everybody to get out and come back. And
When you broke your arm, were you sent home, or did they say, well, you live close by, you can walk?
well, we all walked back
Yes.
then. No, I think I did go down to Dr. P's at that time, and he gave me some Pentothal, or they put me under. And when I woke up, I was sick as a dog.
He was above
The Brenneman's.
Brenneman's
Yeah.
store at that time, which is now the O'Neill Building, and so we can identify it geographically. We have to identify everything geographically because 50 years from now it may not be here, as you well know. So it's in the northeast corner of the square,
Yeah.
and upstairs. Dr. Pete.
Actually, the town itself, it really hasn't changed that much in 50 years. I mean, it has changed,
There are
but
some of us who have tried to make sure that it doesn't change that much.
but the same pattern, traffic flow patterns and things like that all
Right.
still exist. I mean, other than some of the barriers and things like that.
Joe, your first experiences in school?
I was going to Central School, and I vaguely remember first grade, but boy, I can't forget second grade.
What happened in second grade?
Lulu Nolf taught second grade.
Everyone speaks of Lulu Nolf with such respect.
Yes, it's a good term.
However, her niece, who still is teaching in the Wadsworth School, would be Peg Klotz, who was 83 years old.
Oh, wow.
Regards Lulu Nolf as one of the warmest, tenderest,
Well, I'm
most
sure she
loving
was.
person, and she probably isn't, but she just was a.
She made sure we towed the line.
Oh yes, she did.
She also had a Victrola, and she would crank it up and play a record, but I don't think we got the rest.
Lulu did not think too much of resting.
No, she didn't think. Well, there were a lot of things she didn't think too much of. She let you know.
She didn't do a bad job, though.
Nope,
because
she
look
did a
at-
good
look how
job.
you turned out.
Yep.
Right. Ruth Ann, how about you? Your initial
I'm a classmate of Jimmy Rivers down there.
in Silver Creek.
No,
rather in
centralized school,
right?
My first impression of first grade was meeting Jimmy. Probably, we've been in school together for 12 years. I mean, it's amazing. So let's see. I remember Miss Kuhn too. We learned the alphabet frontwards and backwards.
I still can say it backwards. I went to her too. She was my first grade teacher.
You really?
Yes.
And
So
let's see, what
She
else?
was my oldest brother's third grade teacher, so she had been there for a few years.
Yeah, she was there. And we practiced drills, storm drills. World War II was,
Yeah.
drills under the desk. I don't know now why that was okay, because the whole ceiling could have fallen in,
Well, have a desk.
Well, it was there, yeah. I don't remember much about school. Meeting the kids, I think that was the most fun
Meeting
for
the
me.
children. Who's your bus driver?
My bus driver, I don't remember.
How about you,
remember?
Jim?
Mr. Leatherman was,
Right.
was ours.
Oh,
Same
of
as yours.
course.
Same as yours. Ray Leatherman.
Ray
Right.
Leatherman.
Right, Ray Leatherman. Now, comes the test. We're not going to start from left to right. We're going to start right in the middle.
Good.
Joe,
Oh,
your fondest memories of high school, followed by your most desperate memories of high school.
wow. I'll start with the desperate one first.
Okay.
One day at recess, I was about a junior or senior at that time.
And you had recess?
No, at noon hour. I'm sorry, not recess, but noon hour. Everybody was going out for lunch, and I was showing off for some girls on the third floor.
You were showing off for some girls on the third floor.
Yeah, well, showing off meaning I was.
Showing off? I mean, showing off means showing off, doesn't
No,
it?
I went over and there was a cord there that you pulled for the fire alarm.
Right,
and,
right.
And so I could pull it down almost to the point where it would ring the bell, but it wouldn't ring the bell.
Wouldn't
And
ring
so
it.
I thought this was really great, and I was
What
showing them how.
control? What control?
Yeah, and so yeah, after that we walked downstairs, and we go outside. Everybody's out in the front yard looking. We were waiting for the fire truck to arrive. Yes, I did.
Who were the girls you were trying to impress?
We won't go into that.
Were they impressed?
Oh, yes.
We need to check those papers of those girls to find out what they were like. If
It
they were
was
impressed by a person
even
who
more
almost
impressive.
ring the fire bell.
Even more impressive when OJ called me into the office. OJ was there afterwards. And he said, well, this is going to cost you. And I said, well, I guess it is.
And
I
what
said, but I tried to talk to him, and I said, that bell's defective, you know.
Oh, absolutely.
And
You were
I've just
checking it.
performed the service for the school. I've shown him that thing didn't work, and he wasn't impressed with that.
No. What was the punishment?
Detention for a week or something like that. That was pretty standard, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, that was also pretty lenient.
Yeah, well, I didn't
for
have to
OJ
get
work.
underneath the desk. I
No.
understand some people went underneath the desk.
We have 3 people whom we have interviewed here who are now 84 years old who were under the desk with OJ work. All of them were over 6 feet tall at that time. They're still 6 feet tall, minus whatever they shrink, when they're 84 years old. But they were all under the desk at the same time. OJ had a. Now, what about your most pleasant memories?
It's a way of punishing.
Right. Your most pleasant memories.
I guess playing football, and there were a lot of pleasant memories.
of
Playing
pleasant
football and going to dances and just having a good time.
Who were
with
your
all the
closest friends in school?
kids. Well, Och was.
Well,
Och,
how about giving Och a name?
Willard Houston.
Willard Houston, who became probably one of the most popular chemistry teachers at the high school.
Really? Good.
My kids, all 3 had him. They still quote him on a daily basis.
Okay. Good.
Every time that I talk with them, they do remember that. So he really made an impression. And none of them went into chemistry, but let me tell you, they certainly do remember the chemistry he taught them. And vicariously, Och taught me about DNA, because I had never heard about it. DNA was not popular. As a matter of fact, it wasn't even invented. As a matter of fact, when I went to school, there were only 93 elements. Now, how many are there?
I don't know.
Ask Och how many there are.
How many, Och?
I mean, I'm
104,
There you go.
93 and 104. And we had to memorize those backwards and forwards also.
here.
Dick, your most memorable and then the most devastating.
For me, academics weren't the top priority in school for me.
We have a problem here. Academics were not your top priority.
Yeah.
You don't like people.
No, I just, after you deal with the department people.
Oh,
for
tell
25
me, I
years,
know.
yeah.
I was mayor for 4 years.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed football and basketball and track and the sports. And probably.
You were very good in track, as I remember.
Yeah, and Mom saved a lot of papers from things from basketball, and I didn't think I was very good, and Dick Cross didn't think I was very good, but I seemed to be all right when it came to scoring. So
Were you people there when Dick Krause came to Wadsworth High School, or was
Yeah.
that?
Yeah.
I mean, when the first day that he was there.
But who knows?
2/3 of all the boys lost their girlfriends.
Oh.
that's
He made
right.
him practice.
Pardon?
He made him practice.
No, had nothing to do with practicing. They all fell in love with him. Oh, he was a handsome, 6 feet 99, and very handsome and kind of a shy, coy, not coy, but shy. And the girls just all, as a matter of fact, I've interviewed several of the girls from the first day that he was there, and they had serious feelings for that man. So those things happen. What about your most devastating?
I think the most, yes, back then you had to have that little card that had to carry around every Friday and to be eligible to play football or
Right,
basketball.
Right. Mhm.
Oh, I forgot.
And I was always worried that Willard Husberger or somebody like that would not sign the
Would
card.
not sign it because you didn't think academics was very
Yes.
important.
Yeah, that's right. So I think that was one of the most very,
Devastating.
to me anyway. I
Art
was
Wright
afraid
was
they
the,
would
was
sign-
Art Wright still there when you were
Art
there?
Wright's there.
Art
Russ
Wright.
Doan and Bill Barton.
We had a football player, I won't not mention his name now, but he's a very, very dear friend of mine and a wonderful, wonderful person. And he has made a successful life of himself, but he was not academically talented either. As a matter of fact, I don't think that he ever, all of his books were virgins. He never touched a book, never. And he barely could read and write. but he was a most popular person. And he had to become eligible for that evening football game. And
Yeah.
he was in my history class. And Art Wright said, blank, what is the capital of Ohio? Now give me the right answer, because this is your eligibility question. And such said, Cleveland. Art Wright said, it starts with C, that's close enough. It's close enough.
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you a story about my most devastating experience, since Joe mentioned yours just a little bit ago about showing off. And that'll give you a couple seconds for the other two of you to think of your devastating and happiest moments. We were in chemistry class, and my lab partner was inert. He didn't do anything, and I had to do everything for my chemistry class. And there was a girl next to me. I kind of liked her. As a matter of fact, I interviewed her not too terribly long ago. I kind of liked her, and just kind of liked her. And she said, why don't you try putting whatever acid doesn't fit with whatever I was doing in there to see what would happen? Oh, I'm macho and game and so forth, so I did, and it exploded. And it burned the entire bottom of my... We walked up to Dr. Klotz's office, 162 Main Street, not South Main, but Main Street, and he treated me because, and of course, the girls just laughed because that was a dumb thing to do, and I did it. So that was the most devastating thing that I did, similar to your fire bell thing. Jim.
Well, I'll start with my most devastating.
Okay.
And that was actually in typing class, typing 2, which I didn't want to take in the first
And
place.
whom did you have for typing 2?
Mrs. Stearns.
Okay.
And
it
she came in
centralized?
class one day and was very upset and said we had our way all the time, so she was going to have her way. Made everybody move, and then she put us where she wanted us. There were 2 guys in the class, Carson Smith and myself. And Carson sat on my left, and she moved both of us to the back of the same row, didn't move us out of the row, just moved us backwards, almost to the back seat. And Judy McGill was sitting in front of me, and I touched her in the back and said, "Isn't this crazy?" And she screamed my name out and said, "Get out." And now this is my senior year. I've never been put out of class from 1st grade to 12th grade. And I was devastated because my father worked at the school. And I just knew that he was going to see me in the hallway somewhere. So I quickly made my way to the office and sat in the office, and Mr. Work could not see me. And so that meant I couldn't go back to class the next day. So I went back to the office during that period, and my dad happened to see me come out of the office.
That was worse than O.J. Worksy catching you.
Exactly. And my dad asked me when he got home, he said, "Why were you in the office?" And I told him, and nothing happened. I was so happy. I thought I was going to really get it.
Well, 48 hours of punishment by not knowing what was happening
Right.
was bad enough. How about the good things?
Well, 2 good things. I was in Oliver Cooper's class. That,
Now Dad, incidentally.
that was,
English.
to me, was a good class. And
207.
also being elected as a Rotarian, honorary, they call them honorary
Right.
Rotarian.
Oh, yeah.
You were elected by the class. And when my name came up as being elected, I was just floored. So that was an honor to me.
That was an honor. Indeed, it was an honor. There's not, whether you're Florida or not, it's still an honor.
Yes.
Great. Ruth Ann, yours.
You don't really not want to know this, do you?
Oh, boy, do we want to know. As a matter of fact, we're going to question you on this one. Ruth Ann.
Oh dear, I did the worst thing ever.
Now, is this one of those things we're not allowed to say on television?
And I think I could say it, but
You
I
can say
probably
it.
shouldn't be saying it. In my senior year, I called my favorite teacher, whom I worked for, Russ Hanna.
By his first name.
Russell Hanna. Yeah.
Or by his first
No.
You didn't.
I called him Mr. Hanna all the time because
I
he was
see.
my favorite teacher. And I excused 2 guys from school, and I was their mother calling. I don't think I ever told this to my husband. And Mr. Hanna knew immediately. I probably giggled like I always do. And he knew immediately who it was. And so I knew that I had to tell him what I did. And he says, well, Ruth Ann, what should we do? I says, I guess I should be in detention just like everybody else because the boys were caught. And so I was in detention for a week.
You called and pretended that you were their mother.
Their mother. One of the guys' mother.
One of the guys,
Yeah.
the mother. And you giggled.
Oh, I'm sure I did. I giggle at everything. You never know when I'm giggling.
What did
about.
Russell Hanna teach?
He was a business teacher.
Business teacher.
Yeah.
He lived on Cleveland Maslin Road in Norton. Not that it makes any difference, but just we try to get as much information as we possibly can about this. Now, we have another assignment here. The teacher that you mentioned a little while ago, who called your name and said, get out. What other kinds of things do the four of you remember about a teacher that shocked you because you had done something, quote, not right?
Oh my! I was such a good girl.
I see you are.
But I was shocked.
Impersonating somebody's mother?
I was really shocked when James was kicked out of the class. I was in that class.
Were you in that class?
I was in the front row.
Oh.
And she was a tough teacher.
Oh. Okay.
But I appreciated her a great deal because eventually I ended up getting a business degree at Oklahoma State.
Well, obviously so.
So Mary Stearns, I remember quite well. She used to write in shorthand on the chalkboard, different sayings, different quotes of people, famous people, and it was all in shorthand.
This does not have to be necessarily in high school. May I share mine, and then that'll
Sure.
refresh your memory. When I was in the fourth grade, I was in the fourth grade. One of the coveted responsibilities for anyone was to hold the door just before recess ended or something like that, and then you close the door, and I was holding the door. And a teacher walked down the hallway. A teacher was a little overweight, like 2x, twice what she should have been.
Did her name start with V?
I'm not going to say. I'm not going to say. And as she walked toward me, I said in a stage whisper, and I've always been pleased with the fact that people can hear me. I speak very loudly all the time. But this was in a stage whisper that she has extraordinarily good ears, or my stage whisper was vocalized loudly enough that she was able to hear it. And I said, she is so fat she wobbles. She heard it.
Yeah.
Well, she didn't call my name. She didn't say anything at all. She just came over and just thrashed me within an inch of my life. So now, that was my story. That kind of thing that you people did. One of those things.
Could you do that today?
Not at all. Not at all.
Not with him as principal.
Joe,
What? What did I do?
where have you been? I just gave you the assignment.
Is this a good one or a bad one or?
Anything at all. Just
No.
something that you said that you wish you would never
No,
have
I never
said.
said. No. I'd have to think about that. You try it.
Oh.
If you, okay, you think about that one. In the meantime, we'll go to another assignment.
Okay.
We'll go to another assignment.
Tell them, Jim.
I have one.
Okay, go ahead. Another one?
This is the one. When I was a junior in school, I remember Mr. Hildebrand.
Yes, Gordon Hildebrand killed in a car accident. His wife
Yeah.
Louise
Right.
also killed in a
That
car.
was
Louise
devastating.
Oberholzer Hildebrand killed in a car
Well-
accident. They drove 1949 Ford.
He
46 Ford, sorry.
he got us a book, and it was a college prep book. And I wasn't in college prep. Had no intention of going to college.
Right?
And I was telling the kids in the class that it was a college prep book. And he called me up to his desk and very quietly said to me, "Unless you know what you're talking about, you keep your mouth shut." And I went, just like that.
Was it a college prep book?
Well, that's all I'd ever seen anybody use, was a college prep class, use that particular book.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just devastated.
Well, I would imagine so.
Who was the music teacher at Central School?
King Sears.
No, at elementary school. She went
Oh,
around.
well,
Harpley or
no.
Hartman?
Hartman, Miss Hartman.
Hartman.
Miss
Hartman.
Miss Hartman, yes.
Hartman Williams. She married Williams.
Yeah, and she's still
Chester.
Still living. Oh, yes. Chester, I'm sorry.
Chester.
Yeah, Kiwanis Club or something in
Yes.
in Medina.
In Medina.
Okay, I'd like to see her sometime. But in the 5th grade, we were out playing in the back of the Central School in the supposed baseball lot, but it's just a big dirt lot. And we'd been wrestling and sliding and everything, so I was all filled with dirt. But I also didn't come in on time. And so she was very angry, and I don't think I ever saw her get angry, but she decided she was going to paddle me. And so she got me up in front of the class, and she, made this big lecture about you have to learn to behave and get in here on time and so on. And then she whacked me, and the smoke, the cloud of dust went all, and everybody in class go, it completely ruined the effect.
How about Dick?
I can't think of anything.
Oh, that's
I
good.
never did anything out of the way.
You never did anything out of the way.
Yeah, I can't try to picture.
When I asked that question to a group here, this is 6 or 7 years ago, honest to heaven, they were criminal. Some of the things that they did were actually criminal. Like one group, there's a partition as you come out of the gym, or the auditorium, OG Work Auditorium now, and go down into the lower hallway. There's a partition there, and 3 people, as a matter of fact, 3 people stood on top of that, and it was dark. There were very few lights. It was dark, and as they were walking down, some girls came down, and they swooped down on top of these girls and scared them to death, obviously. And of course, they coddled the girls to make sure that they wouldn't go tell, but they told anyway, and they got into some serious trouble. Let's go to some of the more erudite things now, just for a couple of minutes, then we'll come back to the fun things. The most important thing that you learned in Wadsworth High School during those 12 years that you were in schools here in Wadsworth that helped you in your lifetime career, what person or what kinds of things helped you?
You're asking me.
Yes.
Well, probably a lot of things.
Name one.
One, I came from centralized school
Right,
to Central School,
right.
and that was quite a
Shock.
jolt in social mores, so to speak. And so I found out that the kids that in the town school, city school now,
We call it the town school.
yeah, the town school seemed to be a bit different from what I was used to in
No,
the
they
rural
were.
school. And so I was quite pleased that I was accepted. I felt accepted anyway. I don't know if I was accepted, but I felt accepted by the city school kids as well as the rural kids. And so it was a good feeling. And so I guess I go
It
by,
bolstered your sense of worth, self-worth.
I guess that's what you could call
And
it. yeah.
one of those things at the right time can propel you into whatever you're going to do. That's a good one. That's Ruth. Then you hit. Let's see if
Yeah.
the guys can do anything better than that. Joe.
Yeah, go for it.
Joe.
I was impressed with a lot of the teachers, and I was coming from a background where my parents had 6th grade education, and they didn't think education was all that important. You should have 6 grades, but that was enough, probably. And so it was just a grand opportunity. I've kept feeling I was very privileged to be going to school and getting to study and all those kind of things. So you named the teachers. Russ Doan used to, he'd come out, you'd draw this perfect picture, and then he'd rip the corner and say, there's something wrong with it, rip it, and then say, do it again.
Russ Doan taught what? Mechanical
drawing, yeah. And
also played basketball.
yes.
He was a dirty basketball player, according to his friends.
Okay.
He would walk up behind someone, put his fingers in his shirt when the person would go to jump. I don't know if that's true or not, but his friends tell me that. At least on the program, they told me that.
Okay.
On the program.
Doug Hudson was very influential. Oliver Cooper, and he kept telling us to pronounce it experience.
Experience, right.
Yeah, right. I never pronounced it like that.
Well, it's wrong anyway, because
And
according to Webster's Third International Dictionary, it's experience.
I think Boffman, the art teacher.
Art teacher.
I didn't do that much with art after I really got going, but at the beginning, that was really an experience. To be able to. I now do oil painting, and that's the only instruction I ever had. So anyway, those are. Oh, and Gene Lyron. I'd like to tell a story about Gene Lyron.
Please do, and I have a couple that I can tell with as well.
I live across the street from Bill Lyron. I keep calling him Gene because I really like Gene Lyron. And
describe Gene Lyron.
Jeez. Well, he was very good at math, and he taught us calculus even, I think, in high school.
Tough?
Yeah, but tough? I wouldn't say tough, would you?
It was tough enough so that the seniors in high school would walk around his room because they were afraid of him.
He ran a very, very strong class about how to do these things, and you felt empowered as a consequence of learning of what he was teaching you. So, later I got a summer job at B&W as an estimator, and I was using all the formulas and the mathematics that he was showing us in high school and so on. But this is a story that I told Bill that I was going to tell it on television, so he'd hear it. But I had a Fulbright to Budapest to teach it at university there, and one day as I was coming out of class with all my students and everything, we're walking down the street, and there's a woman way down at the end of the street yelling, "Shaggy shag, and which means help, help. And I look, and there's a guy running down the street, and he's carrying something like this, and it looked just like a football, but it was her purse. And and I could see this way down the street, and then the streets are lined with people, but they're all good communists, and so they're not going to do anything. And so I realized, and I'm about 50 years old at that time, I realized, well, I'm going to have to take this guy out. And so I step out in the middle of the street, and I've got a suit on and a long coat and a briefcase, and all of a sudden Gene Lyron's on my shoulder over here saying, "Okay, Joe, you got to get down low. You got to drive into him when he comes. You got to fake him out a little bit." And so, you know what happens when you're in an accident? Time slows down, and
yes.
And so time is slowed down, and I've got a lot of time to think about this. And Gene is telling me this, and really get it out. And at the very last minute, I think, no, I'm going to get my suit dirty, and and so I said, I'm going to hit him high like the pros, and I whopped him with my briefcase, and he threw up the purse, and then all of a sudden everybody on the street started chasing him down there, and so anyway, I was 50 years old. Here's Gene Lyron over my shoulder telling me, those kind of. That kind of education sticks.
Was Gene a coach at that time?
Yeah, he was a line coach for the football team.
Right. As a matter of fact, he was a baseball coach as well.
No, I think so.
We have a picture of Gene Lyron in City Hall of his baseball team, and all of the kids have a different cap on. No one has a team cap on. So I asked the question, why? So because Gene Lyron is their coach, and he was too frugal, I guess that's the word they used, ever to buy anything for the team. They had to bring their own baseball caps. That's a good story. How about yours?
Boy, that's tough to beat.
Yeah?
I think I just enjoyed the teachers a lot.
Who were some of the ones?
I was in the print shop.
Print shop. Oh, with Goodrich?
Yes, and
Describe Goodrich.
well, I don't know how to do.
Tall,
Yeah,
bald,
yeah.
good printer.
It's
Go ahead and describe him.
yeah. Trying to think of. I don't know if that's exactly the way you describe it or not, but I guess when I finished school and finally graduated, which my mother was very happy, and I went to Bluffton, which is very unusual for a year. I found out that no smoking, no dancing, no drinking, no nothing.
No lipstick either.
I said, this isn't for me, and I went into the Army, and for 2.5 years, and then came out and went to college, graduated from UC, and that's where I met my wife, who's in the audience.
You went to where you what?
UC,
Oh.
University of Cincinnati.
That was Cincinnati, right.
Yeah.
Mhm. And what did
So-
you major in?
Business administration.
Business administration, good.
Yeah. So I think it prepared me for that. I knew that
Despite the fact that you didn't particularly want to.
I did learn one thing in school.
What's that?
My father worked for the injector company.
Mm-hmm.
He got me a night job 2 summers in a row, working 10 to 6 nights in a line
You
injector.
learned that you didn't want that.
And I said, this isn't for me.
That's one of the better educations.
You bet. That's right. That's the fastest way. My brother did that to his second son, and put him out in that place in Barberton, rubber company, foundry, whatever it was. I forgot what it was.
Midwest.
And, pardon me?
Midwest rubber.
Midwest rubber. Midwest rubber. Right. And he went to college. He's now the CFO for U.S. Gypsum, and otherwise he would have been out at Midwest Rubber still. Jim, quickly. We're going to run out of time here if you
Well-
if people talk too much.
I can think of Willard Huntsberger, and I don't know what it was about him that impressed me, but
What do you mean you didn't know what it was about? I was impressed. He was.
He was impressed.
I was impressed, but I can't tell you what it actually was. He knew a lot of stuff, I guess. And
He would call him an elderly scholar.
Yeah.
Very good at history.
An elderly scholar.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, good person.
But one thing he always did that kind of shocked me, and that was he'd take that chalk. He'd be talking, and he'd chalk all over his hands, and because he'd be writing on the board with chalk. But he'd take that chalk and put it right here in his mouth. And then when he'd get through it, his lips would be chalky. And I go, why would you do that? I'm writing my memoirs, and that's one of the things I put in there.
Shocking. The
Huntsberger walked to school every day. Didn't
oh
he?
yeah, of course he lived only a
Lived
block
in
and a half
town.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The when I went to the service shortly after the Civil War, I was
War.
called upon
No way.
was called upon to write something. Well, of course, yeah, unfortunately or fortunately, I was in a company that was probably 30% illiterate, and they're wonderful people and they're good soldiers, but they just didn't have any background. So they called upon me to write something. And then more than that, they asked me if I could type, and I could because I had taken 1 semester of typing in school. Betty Languth, L-A-N-G-U-T-H, taught that. I took 1 semester and I was able to type, and I went all the way through the service with that typewriter as a result of that. Now, we have just a few more minutes left here. We're going to have to quickly go over some other things. What about the people in the schools? Now, tell us who your friends were. This ought to be an easy one. I mean, who was your friend? Name one person, your friend, all 4 of you, name your friends, and then what kind of influence did they have on you?
Just one?
Well, you
friend?
can have other. I mean, heck, you can have
Oh.
more than one friend. I mean,
I had a
tell
lot
us.
of friends.
And
I
which ones
think.
had the influence on you?
Influence.
Right.
Dick Wolford.
Dick Wolford, okay.
Was that a good influence or a bad influence?
I don't know. Jimmy Rivers. I mean, you
They were all
too,
influential.
Yeah, I think so, and other people.
Mhm.
A lot
They
of
have some names?
females. Sure, you want some
Yes,
names.
names. Mhm. This is the way we get the names of the people in the classroom.
Yeah, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Loretta Hershey, who
Loretta.
ended up being one of my bridesmaids.
Okay.
Okay, now, I'll pass. I have a lot of names.
Well, go ahead. That's what we want.
Oh, a lot of names.
Yeah, we're trying to get the names of the people.
I sang with the Harmonettes
The Harmonettes.
in high school.
King Sears was the
so
director.
Kingsley Sears. He
Who
was
were
a
the Harmonettes at
wonderful
that
person
time?
At that time. Ooh, Gish. What was her first?
Jackie.
Jackie
Gish.
Gish. Okay.
Mary Lou McEntee.
Betty
Duran
McEntee.
Zurich.
Betty Zurich.
Duran.
Duran.
Yeah.
What's her name now?
Huddleston.
Huddleston.
D. She goes by
D.
D now.
D. Paula Neath, who
Died at 19.
And I was first alto. I was trying to figure out what I sang, but I took her part as soprano because
She
she
died.
got sick during the last part of the thing. Let's see, Esther Ritzman was in there. Elsie Head, did I mention her?
No.
Okay.
Elsie who?
Elsie Head.
Yes,
I believe
right.
she's deceased now.
Just
She died.
recently.
Just she died. I'd have to look at my book for the rest of the
That's pretty
names.
good.
That's good.
Joe, I know you didn't sing of the Harmonettes because that was all girls, but what?
All girls.
who were some of the
Rotarians
influential
gave us
friends, and who were
necklaces.
your friends in school
Well, one person who really was influential.
besides Ouch?
Besides Otch and John Williamson and some other, Gary Polk, because I could beat him up, and
Well, that was
Is he going to watch this?
What are the
and
recommendations?
Gene
we
Gossage
want?
because he could beat me up.
Oh, yeah.
But Arnold Goldstein was just super. I mean, he was a very intelligent person and really taught me that I could go to college and I could do this. And I was student body president the senior year, and he nursed me or schooled me in how you go about doing something like that. His father ran the G&H drugstore, and it was called for Goldstein and Hirsch. G&H, Rookie Hirsch was family, and what was his father's name? I forget now. But he would give me a job at the drugstore, and Arnie and I would go down in the basement and take inventory or something, and we'd just tell stories down there, and just he would show me how the business works and things like that. But it was very, very a supportive relationship, and I learned a great deal from him.
And who were some of your other friends?
Well,
Even those whom you can't beat up.
Oh, okay. Well, I dated a girl named Iris Hoagland. Her
Iris
father fixed all the
Washing machines.
Washing
Len
machines.
Hoagland lived on
Yes.
Hartman Road.
And she ran around with Esther Ritzman, and Gary Polk was dating Esther at that time, so she was an old friend. And
She married him.
no, she married somebody else.
Oh. Okay.
Well, obviously. Since she didn't marry you, she married somebody else. How about your circle of friendships?
Like John Hanna was one of them.
John Hanna, who became the mayor of Wadsworth.
That's right. Very, very political.
Who came later,
No, he's
so
not
he
political.
can't
He's just a good mayor.
Oh, okay. I think Mary Lou McEntee was my first girlfriend.
Yeah, she's married.
And there's Marilyn Miller
Marilyn Miller,
and Jim Gordon
Jim Gordon.
and Marion Passanley.
Yes, I forgot.
I guess Jim Dennison and the A.B. Mass, I remember those well. I do remember Gene Gossage because I'm like Joe, he's beat in the football field, he just pumped.
He could beat anybody up. Gene Gussie could beat anybody. What do you weigh, about 285 pounds or something
I
like
forget.
that?
No, he wasn't that big.
And
He was
all muscle. How tall was Gene?
He was big.
6'2",
He was big.
6'1". I was 6'1", and he was 6'2". And he weighed a few more pounds.
Big guy.
And all muscle.
Yeah.
Yeah. I broke his leg.
You
playing
broke his leg.
That's how I got the position. And
How'd you break his legs?
well, we were just doing the usual thing, his beating me up, and I guess he kicked me or something. But he fractured his leg, and he didn't know it, and he played on it for a while, and then he had to stop and take off for a while. So I got the position, and so that was a great with me. I could now be a Philadelphia Eagle. Or something like that.
My father drove the Grizzly school bus. And
Yes.
So he'd bring home all these stories. So I
Oh,
knew
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
about you guys.
How about some of those stories? Do you have any of them?
No, but the
no.
bus, though, was painted white and it had Grizzlies
Yeah.
and red letters along there. And apparently that wasn't legal.
Evidently not, but
That's
Art Wright said
that's
it was
what
okay.
was,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was,
Special bus for the athletes. Yeah.
you know,
Right. No girls on that bus.
no.
No.
Those stories would have been rampant had there been.
He's,
Dick, how about you? Some your friends? You said I think you gave us several of them, but
The only one of the others ones it was Jim Gordon. We were playing like Kent Roosevelt in football, and we were defensive on the defensive line, and I remember that we rushed in right near the end zone, and the football was laying there on the field. I just jumped on it, and Jim jumped on me, and at that time that's a touchdown by the other team. Well, geez, I wish he was just flabbergasted. I don't think he ever will let me forget that, because I fell on the ball before he did and got a touchdown as a lineman.
and Jim would be the wrong person to not want to
Yeah,
forget.
yeah.
That's right. I interviewed Jim and his two brothers not too terribly long ago. Just delightful. All three of them are just great. Mr. Rivers.
Yes, sir. Well, my friends were people that went to church with me, close friends, but I did have some friends in high school, Marvin Cooter and Fred Opplinger, and I'm trying to think of the Jerry Newcomer, who always called me Running Waters.
Why did he call you Running Waters?
Just association.
Oh, Rivers. Oh, yeah.
He even wrote that in my yearbook.
Okay. Running
Running
Waters.
Waters. And,
Now, was this the newcomer who lived down in Dooley Baum Hill?
No, he lived out in the country in Tower Road.
Oh, way out that way. Okay,
Right.
the other direction. Okay.
He still lives on in that farm
yeah, his parents.
where he grew up.
And who were some of the other friends?
Well, Ruth Ann was a good friend from Centralized. All the kids that went to Centralized kind of were good friends together.
When we were, I've been going through taking some pictures for the banquet tomorrow night, it's tomorrow night. And we came across this picture from the 43 kids graduating from the 9th grade at Centralized. And there were only 80 of us at Central School. And so when you guys came in, that was a major change in our class as well. I mean, it was change for you, but it was change for us as well.
How many graduated in your graduating class?
88 in the graduating class, but in the sophomore year, or freshman year, we had 123, but that's counting the 43 that's coming from centralized school.
From 123 to 88.
Right,
That would have been the sophomore year,
yeah.
because we didn't come until sophomore year.
I
Yeah,
hope
that's
that
right.
many of them moved and they didn't drop out of school. That's a pretty big
Well,
percentage to drop
sure.
out of school.
Some did.
Some did.
Dropped out of school.
Wow. That's a big percentage. I didn't realize that. That was one of the smallest classes, I believe, was it not?
Yes, it was.
Yes.
Then they started going up. Now, what did we graduate here
We
this
were
past
small
year?
but special.
Very special.
Very.
Obviously, we were. My wife's graduating class was only 52 from Brunswick. And Brunswick has grown so much now that they now have 18 more school buses than they had people in her graduating class. So I have quite a few people. We have just a few minutes left, about 4 or 5 minutes left. We want to take out the memories that you want people to know, and it doesn't have to be your memories, but any memory that you have from the school. And we're going to start with you, Dick. A memory that you think that typifies the class of 1955.
Well, I think that being Central School down there, the way it was located and the way that principal's offices, superintendent had to go up the stairs to get into those offices,
Right.
which I've been in a couple of times. And
But you didn't do anything bad, though, you said?
No.
You probably went to get commendations?
Yeah.
So- They have special days
I
for
remember-
commendations.
Yeah, and I do remember the gymnasium.
Mm-hmm.
You had the dressing rooms that were down below.
Right.
And you had
Didn't
to
smell good.
come up and and they had to come up these stairs.
You're right.
And that's where you got onto the basketball floor.
They had one
And they
side
had
for
just-
the girls, one side for the boys, right?
Well, that was and then the girls were visitors also.
Right.
And then they had this little rim, like a balcony above.
Right.
Around the thing. You could almost be on the floor. We were almost, and I remember that. Then things like that. The print shop was very good, and we had lots of good times, and we did a lot of printing for the school.
Right.
I got a couple of old plates of block plates, and that I got from the print shop after the annual were printed up and things like that. So we did all the letterheads and things like that. So
Saved a
those
lot
are
of money.
things.
Right. Jim?
I would say that the architect of the building inside, and we didn't have that up the down staircase, you know. You could go up and down any set of stairs, but the squeaky floors. And I worked at the school after I graduated, and the windows making noises after you turned off all the lights, that was scary.
I would imagine so.
You'd always think that you were the only person in the building, but then when you turn the lights off and walk up the hall, you'd hear something rattle, and you'd turn around and look real quick and then wonder if somebody was behind you.
They deferred maintenance on some of those things for quite some time. Joe, we have only a minute left.
The school building.
Pardon me?
I started in first grade in that building, and I went through.
You're
12,
probably the only one of the four of you who did that,
went
right?
all through 12
Yeah.
grades, and so I had this feeling of accomplishment. I started in the basement, and I made it out the door. Out the door.
And who was your first grade teacher?
I can't remember her name. Lulu Knopf was second and third grade was, I'll never forget her, but third grade was Birkbeck, I think. something
Yes,
like
Velma Birkbeck.
that. And then there was a Mrs. Rohr.
Rohr, right.
Yeah, and then Belle Lytle was not only the sixth grade teacher, but she was the principal. And she wore laced up boots
Right.
And long skirts and kept her hair in a bun. And, was she ever married?
No.
Can't understand why.
I think there was a swimming pool
Yes.
under the floor of the gym, and they're telling me yes, there was. And I remember one time somebody opened it, and I thought I was in a movie, you know, where they all jumped in the pool. There was no water in there, unfortunately. And I remember they kept the chairs under the stage,
Right.
Yeah.
and they dug them out at appropriate times, and so many memories. We worked hard.
We worked hard.
We had a lot of fun.
A lot of fun, and you're having fun tonight. That's
and we
wonderful.
accomplished a lot, I think.
We have come to the end of the hour. We want to thank the class of 1955 for their just delectable memories and all of the nice things that you have done. And we are so pleased that you are a part of the Wadsworth heritage, because it's a special part, since you were a special class.
Good.
Small but special.
I'm
Thank
glad
you
you
very much for
recognize
coming.
that.
We were small and
Thank you.
special.